Good news.
Good.
That's good?
So good.
We're good.
Good evening, everybody. Start the meeting of the August 12th, 2019 meeting of the Union County Zoning Board of Adjustments is now in session. I'm Mark Tilley, co-chairman. Our chairman, Darren Green, is out of town. To my right is Rick Davis, and to my left is Rob Thornton. We got Jim King, our zoning administrator. Pamela Rivers is our clerk to the Zoning Board of Adjustments. And Bill Sturgis is our attorney for the Zoning Board of Adjustments. We hear three types of applications. We have application for a variance from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, or appeal from a decision or an interpretation of the zoning administrator, or an application for a special use permit. The order of each case will be as follows. All parties who plan to give testimony, pro or con, must complete the green form to speak and to be sworn in. A zoning staff member will explain why a permit was denied, or why a variance is requested, or the nature of the special use permit application. The board may question the zoning staff member. The applicant may question the zoning staff member, and then the applicant presents his testimony for the case. I should say his or her. The board may question the applicant, the zoning staff member, and persons in opposition may question the applicant. The applicant may present sworn witnesses. They will be subject to cross-examination. Other parties wishing to speak, pro or con, will be given reasonable time to present sworn testimony. They will be subject to cross-examination. The zoning staff member and then the applicant will be given an opportunity for rebuttal. After hearing a case, the board will review the case and render a decision. This is usually done following the close of the public hearing and the board's deliberation. However, the board may elect to take up to 30 days to render a decision. You may remain present during the deliberation, or you may call the zoning staff the next day of business to receive a decision from the board. All exhibits must remain with the board. Please hand them first to the clerk for the tagging. In your case, if your case is not appealed to the Superior Court after 30 days, you may pick them up or they will be destroyed. If you feel there's a conflict of interest with any member of the board or any association that would prejudice your case, please let it be known at the start of your case. We are a quasi-judicial board and can accept only sworn testimony. No hearsay evidence is admissible. Appeal from this board is to the Union County Superior Court. You have 30 days from the date of the board's written decision in which you can appeal with NCGS 160A-388E. And then please turn all cell phones off, please. Okay. Introduction of the case. I guess first let's do the minutes from our last ones. Everybody read them? I will mention this, the quorum. There's three of us. So you gotta get all three in order for it to pass.
Actually, I was doing a little research on that, and the way our ordinance is written for a special use permit, and according to our rules of procedure, it just takes a majority of those board members present. So it would require 2 in favor of the special use permit in order for it to be granted.
Okay. Your odds just got better. Okay, So we have a quorum. And then, let's talk about the minutes. So May 13th, 2009, y'all had the opportunity to read those minutes?
Yeah.
I have a motion to accept.
I make a motion to accept the May 13th minutes.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm used to doing this, a little rusty, so y'all bear with me a minute. This one, special use permit, 2019-SUP-04, Union Electric, construction of a new larger substation. Okay, we had, this location is at 715 Walters Mill Road, parcel number 04-132-016A and B. The current zoning is RA 40. Existing use is the Union County Electric substation. The proposed use is decommission the existing substation and construct a new larger substation. The owner is Union Electric. The agent is Nathan Bass for Pike Engineering. The address is 123 North White Street, Fort Mill, South Carolina. Do I hear a motion that we, well, first of all, is there any conflict of interest with our board here?
I don't have one.
All right, do I hear a motion that we hear this?
Make motion here.
I have a second.
All right, okay. Mr. Land Use Coordinator, you wanna start out by giving us a rundown on this?
Swear me. Swear
Yes.
me.
Mark?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter at hand?
All right, well, we've covered the location and the applicant, so we'll move on. So we'll start off with a conceptual site plan. As you can see right here, there's two parcels. The first parcel is up against the road, close to Walters Mill, and it's a smaller parcel, and that's where the existing substation is currently today. They are proposing to have a drive access point right beside that existing substation, going back on the larger parcel, which is referred to as parcel B, and constructing a larger substation. At which time, when the larger substation comes online, their plan is to decommission the smaller substation. One of the things I do want to point out here with this conceptual site plan, I know it's busy, but if you look down at the bottom, you'll see an elevation on a graph chart there. And that's showing where they're proposing to plant vegetation and how that should have a visual appearance from the road. Now, here's another conceptual site plan. It's the same thing, it's not as busy, and it gives you a better understanding of the current site, the proposed site. On here, they're also showing that this proposed site is going to be a minimum of 100 foot off any property line. Here's a blow-up with the proposed landscaping. As you can see, they're proposing the heavy landscaping around the entire compound, which the current compound has no landscaping. The zoning of the property is RA40, and looking at the GIS layer, zoning layer here, all the surrounding properties are also zoned RA40. Our land use plan calls for this area to be residential and in nature, also agricultural in nature. The GIS is also showing that there's some environmental features here, a possible lake and wetlands. However, I do believe that they may not exist anymore. They may have been filled in. However, they will, the applicant will need to work with NCDEQ, which is North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, with any type of environmental features on the property. As far as transportation road improvements goes, there are no proposed road improvements in the general vicinity. And the development status you can see here is the area is vastly either undeveloped or underdeveloped. Concerns the staff had was that the GIS shows an impoundment in the wetlands on the property, on a portion of the property, and this would need to be mitigated through NCDEQ. And then question, how would this facility be secured, which the applicant can address when he gives his presentation. So staff recommendations. As always, staff recommends that the application must comply with all local, state, and federal requirements, must fully comply with the Union County Development Ordinance. They would need a permanent NCDOT driveway permit. It is a requirement for major utilities that they have a 10-foot wide S2 high-profile screen around the entire compound. Because they are showing on their conceptual plan a 100-foot minimum setback, then staff would propose that would be a condition of approval. They need a decommissioning plan for the proposed facility, as well as decommissioning the existing facility once the new facility is online. Mitigate any environmental impacts through NCDEQ. And in talking with the urban forester, he wanted to add this as a recommendation, that this tree specification and species selection must be approved by the Union County Planning Department and urban forester during site plan review. At this time, that concludes staff's introduction to the request. Staff's here if the board has any questions of them. If not, the applicant's here to give further presentation.
Mr. King, one question. On the decommissioning of the old station, is there any requirements from your department on how long this has to be decommissioned, what the time frame is on the decommissioning?
No, sir, there is not a requirement from our department. It's not addressed in the ordinance.
So basically, if they put the new one online 10 years from now, that old one could still be there then?
Unless if you put a condition on approval as far as when.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
Jim, can you take me one slide back? I've got 7 on my list, but you've got 9 on yours. One was, of course, tree species.
Yes, in fact, when I was working on my PowerPoint, looking over it this evening, I added the decommissioning existing facility once the new one is online.
Trying to propose, decommission, got it. I'm missing one, I'm just, oh, I see.
So actually, there is a time limitation. It's supposed to be done once it's online, but I like Rick's idea, maybe a deadline after that point in time,
Mhm,
possibly.
I don't know whether this is you or now, or as we hear the evidence, I'm kind of curious, tree specification and species, not seen that.
What the urban forester was looking at is what they presented. Some of the species were not native to the area.
Got
So
it.
he was wanting them to work with him to have more native material on site.
Okay. That's all I have, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. I guess we need anybody gonna give testimony to come up and be sworn in, please.
You want to do everybody at one time?
Yeah. Anybody that's gonna give testimony?
Yeah, let's.
That's for or against now.
Or impartial.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter at hand?
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Nathan Bass, and I'm the manager of Facilities Planning Department at Pike Engineering at 123 North White Street in Fort Mill, South Carolina. And I'm here today on behalf of Union Power Cooperative, and as you are aware, we are seeking approval to construct a new electrical substation on the property at Walters Mill Road, where they have an existing electrical substation. And the existing substation, as Mr. King mentioned, will be removed after the new one is constructed and placed in service.
How much time do you need for that?
I'd have to defer to Union Power, but I believe a timeframe of 6 months would be reasonable, just to give us time to appropriately remove the infrastructure and dispose of it in an appropriate way.
Okay.
And so this new facility is needed to ensure that Southern Union County continues to be provided with an adequate supply of reliable electric power. And while this area is still pretty rural, there is low growth occurring in this area. And the substation that's on this parcel is the primary means for which that area receives its power. However, that station is almost 70 years old, and it does not have the capacity to serve any growth in the area going forward. So the only reasonable alternative at this time to solve those low growth issues into the future is to replace it with a new substation. The new substation will provide the following benefits. It'll have the capacity to serve over 8,000 accounts. As a comparison, the existing station can only serve about 2,900, and we're about at that point right now. So there's not a lot of capacity that the new substation can serve going forward. The new station will have modern equipment that is more reliable and safer when routine maintenance is needed. The existing substation, as Mr. King mentioned, sits on the road with no landscape screening, whereas the new station will sit over 300 feet off the property on the back side and will be screened by landscaping and which will sit on top of an earthen berm. So we're going to build a berm around the outside perimeter of it and then increase the screening ability with landscaping on top. The other benefits to not only building the new substation is building the substation on this precise parcel because the electrical infrastructure needed is already on site. We already have a transmission line that serves the substation, so we don't have to route a new one. And the distribution that takes the power from the substation and sends it off into the community is already there. So everything that we need is already in this exact location.
One question.
Yes, sir.
The existing transmission lines, as far as the incoming and the outgoing, are they adequate for the new system, or will anything have to be changed on?
We are considering working with one of the property owners. One of the transmission line that currently serves the property cuts through the middle of his field, and we're considering going to them and seeing if he would like it to be pushed towards the road. That way we won't encumber his property. However, if they're not in agreement, we would just leave this transmission line where it is.
But the ampacity of the lines are sufficient to handle what
Yes,
the
sir.
new substation?
Yes, sir. And lastly, the site itself is optimal for the new substation. The land is relatively flat, barely gently sloping. It requires virtually no clearing because in the past it was operated as an agricultural field or pasture area. And we've also conducted environmental investigations on the site, and there are actually no streams, jurisdictional wetlands, or any protected species on site. Mr. King mentioned a pond that was on site according to the online data. However, that pond was removed using jurisdictional methods about 10 years ago. So the pond is gone, and we had a biological expert revisit the site to make sure that there weren't any springs or anything feeding that area, and there were not. So to date, there is nothing on that site that would give us any reason for caution.
Okay, one question.
Yes, sir.
As far as the agricultural part of it, now the property around the existing substation is being farmed with row crops.
Yes, sir.
Is that, once the new station's going back in, are you going to allow this farmer to come back in and row crop what's left of it?
At this time, we're not considering that. We're considering just using it as remaining property at this time.
What will happen to that property? Well, who's going to control it?
Union Power will retain ownership, and then future plans for it are.
Now, what I'm saying is, as far as keeping the weeds, the trees, the undergrowth, the brush down, now the farmer is doing that by row cropping.
Mm-hmm.
But if the row cropping stops, then someone's gonna have to be liable or responsible for keeping it clean, keeping it mowed.
Okay.
That's what, 20-something acres there or something?
There's 24 and a half, yes, sir.
Or, and you're taking up, what, 4 acres out of 3, maybe a couple of 3 acres?
I believe so.
So there's 20 acres there that's gonna be left abandoned.
Well, there's a couple options there. One option is to maintain it, as you mentioned, maybe a couple times a year, mow it to make sure it's a meadow type area. Another option, and we haven't actually discussed that portion of it, on other substations, we've actually allowed the natural succession to take place, which will add to the screening ability over time. So both options are completely viable.
But then if you let the natural part take over, then it's gonna be scrub brush, so it's just gonna look, it's gonna look unmaintained, you might say.
I understand.
And I don't think that's gonna be acceptable for the property owners.
Okay,
It wouldn't be for me,
okay,
knowing now that it's row cropped and everything's maintained and it's neat looking.
okay.
But that is something that you would consider.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we maintain hundreds of miles of line, transmission lines and distribution lines in the pasture state. So doing so for an electrical substation would not be out of the question.
Do you think it would be possible for them to let the farmer go ahead and continue row cropping it?
I can't speak on Union Power's behalf, but it's something that I'd have to defer to them on.
Okay, I'm saying.
Are there any other questions? One thing that I mentioned, or that I need to mention, is in attachment A on the second page, I need to add a point of clarification. If you look at the top of the page, there are 3 items of studies that we have conducted. The second one, I want to clarify that. The Cultural Resources Survey to determine whether any archaeological sites to be eligible would be impacted. That could be implied that we have already conducted shovel testing or very intensive digging to search for these sites. We have not done that to date. However, we have contacted the State Historic Preservation Office, as we do with all projects, to ask them if it is necessary in this area to do so. We have not heard back from them on that yet, which is fairly typical. But it all depends on their understanding of how probable there would be resources in this area.
The one thing I don't see here is normally there is a property value impact study done.
Yes, sir. We have
Is it
one
on
done.
here?
Yes, sir.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's the,
It was not included in our packet, but it's going to be presented as evidence.
yes, I have packets for each one of you. And Ms. Carol Fortenberry is the appraiser that did the study, and she'll be happy to speak on that behalf as
Okay.
well.
And just, so to keep me from looking,
Yes, sir.
was the co-op also gonna put up a structure there as an office or something as well with that?
No,
I've
there,
seen something there.
inside the fence itself, there's a control enclosure which houses all the controlling electronics to serve the substation. It is not a habitable structure. It is a prefabricated structure that sits inside the fence. It's the gravel-sided little utility sheds
So
that
it'll be a
sit.
utility shed. For some
Yes,
reason,
sir.
I was thinking that there was gonna be an office, a co-op office.
No, sir.
Okay.
Could you go over the facts of findings that you have presented here?
I have not, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or,
You gonna listen to the one that looked at it and said it was all right first?
That'd be fine.
You gonna present the impact study on it first?
That'd be fine.
Carol, would you mind? Sure. Would you like to see a copy of it?
I would.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. She's up there. What's her name?
My full name is Carol Lomax Fortenberry. I'm a commercial real estate appraiser. I'm licensed in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. I also hold the MAI designation from the Appraisal Institute. And I've been preparing a number of impact studies for different types of properties. I've actually done this for Union County before in the past, different client. But my impact study is the third tab in this booklet. There's lots of fun reading in there, and maps. I think a lot has been covered, but really the findings of fact, or my conclusions start on page 43. And that's just more the introduction on page 43 and showing the map. I believe one of the maps that was shown tonight, excuse me. The area is zoned, has been pointed out, RA 40. There's just a lot of agricultural area and very little development nearby. Substations do require a special use permit for this area. And the fact that there's an existing substation there, I did get to meet Mr. Walters, and he was quite a polite gentleman, and he did not seem to be bothered that they already have a substation there, and the fact that this won't be moved further from the road pleased him, and also that it would be more secure and landscaped, so he was happy about that. I didn't see where the public, any endangerment to the public, and I think you all have some really good, the staff has some good recommendations. I think the security, which I believe, I was told it will be locked at all times. I don't think that is the case for the current substation, the smaller one. And it's so visible, and this one will be, literally, it'll be very nicely landscaped. When I looked around, I studied property values all around within a 3-mile area of this property, and I found no evidence that the fact that there's an existing substation there, that property values were, I think they were kind of mixed, but I just couldn't find any evidence that property value's been hurt because there's a substation there, and the fact that this one will be more remote and actually provide a service to the community, I would think it would be well received. I also looked at historical assessed values, and that they're based on it's a mass appraisal, but they look at property values, they look at market value, and I couldn't find where there had been any harm to property values because of the existence of this existing substation, and I couldn't see where this one would cause any problems to the adjoining owners. It really is in character. It'll be kept in character as a rural, large acreage site, which is pretty much what's there now, which is the next fourth point is it will remain in harmony with the area. And it's also in line with the Union County 2025 future land use plan indicates no changes for that area, that it should remain agriculture and farmland type of neighborhood. So this substation will not cause any major changes to that type of development. And I'm a little more wordy in my book or in this report, so I don't know if you'd rather read it closely. I was just trying to sum it up for you, if that helps.
Okay.
Any questions?
Does the applicant want to move this book into evidence?
Yes?
If one market applicants are good, one.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Sure.
I spoke with Mr. Matt Balcom of Union Power, and he mentioned that with regard to the maintenance of the site, having it farmed with agricultural uses or maintained in pasture land is a perfectly good option for them. Also, to answer Mr. Davis's question about the increasing the voltage of the line, I was mistaken when I said that it would not be increased. It will. It is currently operated as a 44 kV line. The existing station is 44 kV. The new station is 100 kV. So that line will be rebuilt to 100 kV standards, but it'll look virtually the same as what's already there. It's single poles, and much of that line throughout its 13-mile corridor has already been rebuilt to accommodate that.
Okay, what is the impact on going to a 100 KVA line coming in, as far as the, I don't know, it's the, what do you call it, the magnitude, when the magnet, you can take a
Electromagnetic
light
fields.
bulb, and you can take a fluorescent light tube under some of these transmission lines and walk under it and light a fluorescent tube just for the you know what I'm trying to say.
Electromagnetic fields.
Electromagnetic
Yes, sir.
fields is what I'm trying to say. What is the effect on this, on changing, you know, there's already a substation there at 44,000, now we're going to 100,000.
Mhm.
So what's the impact is that gonna have on,
I'm gonna have to qualify that with, my profession is actually as a landscape architect and not an electrical engineer. So I can speak on, evidence has been reported, that's been prepared by Duke Energy and others. With that being said, of all the studies that have been conducted, there's been no conclusive evidence to say that there's any impact from electromagnetic fields, with regards to human health. Going from 44 kV up to 100 kV, I don't think there will be a difference, because for one, the line is actually being raised slightly higher to some degree. And underneath the line itself, the readings, based on just some reports I've read, can be, less than 20 milligauss, which is how they read. And then the edge of right-of-way, you're looking at probably 2 to 3 milligauss. And if you take a Gauss meter in this room, you're probably going to be at ambient in the 2 to 3 range. If you fire up a can opener, it could be in the 5,000 range. So what you are exposed to everyday life in your house, whether it's a hairdryer, a microwave, or your cell phone, is exponentially more than what it would be on the edge of the right-of-way,
Okay.
and even underneath the right-of-way.
so there's no endangerment to any of the
No,
public
sir. No,
as
sir.
far as the existing homeowners that are there now?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay, one other question, speaking of a farm gate,
Mhm.
where's this farm gate gonna be?
We're going to put the substation fence itself will be completely enclosed with a lock and key and chain link around the entire thing. The farm gate's going to be at the entrance to the access road, so approximately 60 to 70 feet off the road, which will give Union Power's equipment enough room to pull off, but not too far where passerbyers can pull off and, go hide down the access road.
I guess, but you're just gonna have a gate going across the road. And my
Across the
question-
access road.
And my question be, what's the purpose of the gate? Will people be able to drive around that gate? Is it just there, so, hey, y'all don't go past the gate now?
For the most part, it is an implied reason to stop, yes, sir.
But there is no ditches or no other, anything to keep people out of?
We're going to have a little bit of slope on the, if you're looking at the station from the road, on the right side, there will be a little bit of a drop off there, so it will be a fairly large inconvenience to do so. And on the left side, currently there's some distribution poles sitting in that area, which would also cause an issue getting across, but short of fencing the entire property with some sort of fencing, getting into the property itself could be obtained if somebody really wanted to.
That's my question. So the gate is there just as a suggestion, hey, don't go past this gate, please?
Unfortunately, for the most part,
Okay,
yes,
that's
sir.
what I was wondering. Okay.
But now the direct area around the substation will be secured.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Currently, the substation that is there now has no impediment to accessing the actual fence itself. We're just adding, for the new station, we're adding one more layer of
Yeah.
implied security.
You still want him to go over his 500 facts?
I think we're good with everything. I just want to make sure the health and safety with the increase of this voltage we're not going to have an impact on anything.
Yeah, the interesting thing, I wish I was more fluent in the EMF studies, but I have taken the Gauss meter, and if you stand at a substation fence, you might get a reading between 5 and 10 milligauss. If you move 20 feet away of the fence, it automatically goes back to the ambient readings that you would see anywhere. So it diminishes very quickly.
Okay. So the guy from Union Power didn't have any objection to the farmer continuing to farm it like he is now
No,
to keep
sir.
the
No,
vegetation
sir.
under control?
No, sir.
I rode by there today and looked at it, and it's just neat looking the way it is now.
It is, yeah.
And if it's left unattended, it's gonna be an eyesore.
I understand.
Anything else?
No, sir. I appreciate your time and
Anybody got any more
Consideration.
questions?
Good.
Mr. King? Do I hear a motion to,
Anybody opposed?
Hmm?
Anybody opposed?
oh yeah, is anybody opposed to this? Okay, nobody here on objection? So, do I hear a motion to go into deliberation?
Make a motion to go into deliberation on it.
I'll second it.
Close the public hearing.
Close
Close
the
public hearing, go into deliberation?
Yep. Second.
Aye. Okay. Let's start with the finding of facts. The way they have theirs written out here, I think is absolutely acceptable. That we need to vote on. So, the proposed use and development comply with all regulations and standards generally applicable within the zoning district and specifically applicable to the particular type of special use. Everybody in agreement with that
I
one?
think we're on target with that. We're just adding more land, more space, bigger
Mhm.
substation.
All right.
Not seeing.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The proposed development will not materially damage the public health and safety. Everybody good with that?
According to what, the testimony he's given, I'm good with it.
Yeah, the only question that came up was whether there was a pond there that may or may not be of issue, but it's been gone for 10 years, so I don't see anything being endangered.
All right, so we good?
You good?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The proposed development will not substantially injure the value of the budding property is a public necessity,
Or is a public necessity.
or is a public.
Necessity is a yes. The growth is there. Do I see anything that's gonna substantially injure anyone? No. I mean, we're actually adding an extra layer of fencing and berm and setback. I don't see it as, and we've had sworn testimony that the property values are fine. I don't see a problem.
Don't see a problem with
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The proposed development will be in harmony with the area in which it is located.
it. It will be, because there's the existing station already there, so
So,
that should take care of that.
we're good with it?
I'm good with it.
I'm good with
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The proposed development will be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. I think we went over that.
I'm not challenged with it.
It's pretty much a necessity from the way, the testimony we've heard for the growth to continue as is expected in the area, so. All right, all in favor there, say aye. Okay.
Talk about staff suggestions to make this a motion.
Yep, I'm gonna put us a motion together.
Well, let's go, well, we can go ahead and put the motion together. Decommission, 6 months, okay. Okay. And I lost, so do we need to go ahead and then put terms on as far as vote that we will accept it under these terms? But we need to go back on one that I would like to get added, is that the property will be taken care of, whether it be row crop or, and he agreed to that. And Union Power said they would agree to it to maintain the property.
word.
I'm concerned about that, frankly. And we have the station, 4 acres in the center of a 24-acre tract is providing the screening necessary. This property's probably got to be a power station for another 70 or 100 years from now. Who knows what's going to happen in those areas? I mean, there may be no farming in that area 20 years from now or 30 years from now. I'm not sure. I mean, they've expressed intent, but what is appropriate for the use of the rest of their land? I'm concerned maybe going a little past the conditions that a board can place in connection with a special use permit.
Well, I mean, what are we actually, are we dealing with the 4.4 acres or the entire 24 acres?
Well, we're dealing with, well, all 24 acres are impacted, but we're dealing with a use of the land. And we're allowing this use to go on that land. And that's basically what a special use permit does. That doesn't prohibit other uses from possibly being on the land that are allowed as a matter of right in RA 40 or whatever. I mean, get rezoned to something else. But I'm not sure it's probably close, whether it's within the Board of Adjustment's power to dictate what happens to the other 20 acres.
I understand. So that, basically, your recommendation is to just kind of leave that out then?
It would be.
Okay.
I think they've expressed a good faith intent as to what they intend to do for the near future. We can't hold them to that, but they seem.
I don't think I've ever went by one of their substations that looked like an eyesore either.
Mhm.
So,
I'm good with it then, that's
Okay.
what your recommendation is.
all right, well, how about if we have somebody make a motion here that we comply with the, did we say 7 or 9? You added some to that. On
I think it's
the
in front of you.
Staff recommendations.
There's 9 on the board here.
There's none on the board. 2 of them were decommissioning. You brought up the question, 6 months, I don't know that I feel compelled to give them that short a leash, that short a timeframe.
Well, that's
Good with
upon
the
him,
year.
that was upon his recommendation of it. So
Yeah.
if
Well, he was saying they could probably do it in 6 months.
Yeah, you good with a year?
I'm completely good with revisiting if it's not done yet in that timeframe.
You all right with a
6
year?
months or a year?
Year.
A year.
The other one to add that's not on our was the tree specification and species.
That's on 9 here.
Yeah, it's on there, but it's not on our
Right.
written form.
Well, how about if we go with staff recommendations, all 1 through 9 on this, and add 1 year for the decommissioning after the new facility is online? Would that be acceptable then?
I like it.
Okay.
I think it's
Let's
kind of
do it.
interesting that we've got native trees being discussed. I think that's kind of good choice.
Anybody want to make this motion?
I'm working it. Where's my page? I make a motion to accept this with the staff recommendations as is, with a 1-year decommission, do I want to say 1-year decommissioning plan?
We have
After
to.
the new one goes online?
Yes, after the new one, a 1-year decommission plan after the new one goes online.
Maybe a little variation is to grant the special use permit as requested with these
I like
9
it.
recommendations in the 1-year time period.
Is that good with you,
That's
Mr.
why we
King?
have a good law.
Thank you, Bill.
All right. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
There's a second.
There we go.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And it is approved.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks.
Any other business?
Any other business?
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
Thank you,
y'all.
Bill.
Y'all are very efficient and good questions.